spirit and consciousness that moves through all of us be present with us now, and let us be present with you, present in silence, present not with ego, not with self, but with our presence that is always present with you. And may we listen to each other and to the wisdom that comes forward. And may we listen in ways that we really hear. And we aren't blocked by our thoughts or our beliefs, or as Matthew says, our views. May we be open. May we always be kind to ourselves and others. And through our practice, may this world become a better place. If I don't know what that means, but may there be soothing through our compassion for all people and all beings that are uncomfortable or suffering.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's start with a meditation, but I thought I would go ahead and explain the practices that I shared with at the retreat. Of course, we shared them over 3 days, so you all will get a crash course if you weren't there. And so there's a methodology to it, and it is the methodology that it's there's this underlying method, and hopefully I'll kind of explain a little bit. And if you pay attention, it runs through all the teachings. And you've heard me talk about it before, which is to fold everything into one. Unify everything in some way. It actually doesn't matter how. You can fold inside into outside, outside into inside, everything into mind, everything into world, everything into consciousness. As long as you don't leave anything out, the whole idea is to unify everything in one, like one concept or one idea or one view. And then let go of that view. Or another way of letting it go would be to just let it be as it is. So if you've been to the group before, you notice that I'll often start meditation with some relaxation, then focusing, then maybe watching your thoughts or some kind of activity. And then at the very end, it's just let everything be as it is. So it follows this pattern. The first practice is dissolving the self on the inhale and dissolving the world on the exhale. Sounds complicated, but you just have to try to do it. So I'll give you a few more pointers that might help. So one of them is to think of this dissolving as making the experience of the world or the outside less real or more dreamlike. And the same when you inhale, making the experience of the self or seeing the self as more unreal or like a dream. Another way to think about it is as if you can see through that, whatever it is. So as you exhale, as if you could see through the world or the image that you see as the world. And try to do the same when you look in. Whatever you see as yourself, imagine you can see through it. What's beyond it? another kind of idea that goes along with this is because you're continuously breathing, inhale, dissolve the self, exhale, dissolve the world. You could also think about this as mixing self and world inside and outside, with the whole goal of unifying the inside and outside so that everything is just in this one space, one space, inside and outside. No dividing line between where the self ends and the world begins, or where the world ends and the self begins. Again, this sounds extremely esoteric. But just try it. And if you feel like you're not doing it right, that's okay. Just try to get a feel for it, or for a feel for how you might try to do this. And if you're completely frustrated, you can always fall back on just focusing on your breath. So the end result of this mixing is unifying everything in one space. And the next part of the meditation is just to be this space. This kind of comes about naturally from the first part, but it is its own practice. You can do it on its own, called integrating into space. And, the idea is there's space all around you. Feel that space inside and outside, and just be that space. Again, might sound weird to you, or it might be something you're occasionally already doing in your meditation. So in which case oh, I know this feeling of being space, of being this space. And the final step of this meditation is just to let go of space, to let space be as it is. Or to see through space entirely. So let's try it. Sit upright with good posture. Inhale and exhale through the nose. And just relax yourself. And I want you to inhale as if you are inhaling through the top of your head, and exhale as if you're exhaling out of the bottom of your feet. Inhale through the top of the head. Exhale out of the bottom of the feet. Inhale. Exhale. As the breath passes through your body, allow it to pick up any tension that is in your body on the way, and exhale that tension out of the bottom of your feet. Again, inhale through the head. Exhale out of the feet. Now inhale through the bottom of the feet, and exhale out of the top of the head. Again, allow the breath to pick up any tension in your back, and exhale that tension out of the top of your head. Now just breathe normally, but focus on your breath, watching each inhale and each exhale, keeping the attention focused on the breath. You find your attention has wandered, just gently bring it back to the breath. Keep the attention on the breath. And now, with each inhale, dissolve the self. And with each exhale, dissolve the world. On the inhale, soften all the various aspects of the self. And on the exhale, soften all the various aspects and phenomena of the world. On the inhale, imagine you are inhaling this softened, spacious world. And on the exhale, imagine you are exhaling yourself. Such that self and world become intermingled or indistinguishable. everything that arises in consciousness, whether seemingly inside or outside, exists in this one space. There is nothing that isn't this space. Now just gently let go of this space. Just let it be as it is. As you come out of the meditation, as usual, don't rush. Remember this feeling of spaciousness, of unification, of softness, and uh, mixing of inside and outside, and the unreality or dreamlike nature of all boundaries, distinctions, and limits. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
At the retreat, were the different progressions that you talked us through today, did you just sort of spend a lot more time on one and
Yeah.
then moved on to the other? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the retreat was 3.5 days. So we spent, like kind of a day on the first the first night was just focusing, just focus on the breath. That's it. And then the next day, I introduced the inhale, dissolve self, exhale, dissolve world. And that we just focused on that. Of course, I still started the guided meditation with focusing, and then we go into the inhale, dissolve self, exhale, dissolve world. And then the next day we talked about this feeling of unified or integrated space, all one kind of spaciousness. And then really just briefly, we talked at the end about letting go of space, because really this letting go of space in this context, it's not something that can happen like a process, that you do for 10 minutes or something like that. It's because everything is wrapped up in that space. If you let go of it, it can only happen timelessly. The experience might seem like a fraction of 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 a second, but actually it's completely timeless, because in that moment, everything disappears. All of space, all of time, all phenomena within it, including the mind, including yourself, everything disappears. So it's not something you can kind of like, oh, we'll practice letting go of space, everything for 10 minutes. It's just see if you can let go of it. So another way to think about it, though, is also a way that you can practice it, I think, is if you just think about it as a kind of open awareness. So instead of thinking about letting go of space, which is more like that kind of practice, uh, instead you just think about just let this space be as it is. Don't try to change anything about it. Don't try to make it disappear. Don't try to keep it there either. See, just let it be as it is. So it becomes more like open awareness. And this is very, you can approach this in various ways. For example, another way I can think about doing this is, okay, you start with focusing. Then the second practice is just to watch your thoughts. Then you contemplate how all phenomena are nothing but thoughts, nothing but the mind. Or you could say, watch your mind and then contemplate how all phenomena are nothing but mind. Nothing, nothing that you ever see or hear or think of or sense or hear is not mind. All of that is your mind. So what you're doing is you're unifying all phenomena inside and outside in mind. And then the final step is to let go of the mind, or to let the mind just be as it is. Or you could say go beyond the mind. This would be another way of saying it.
Okay, that's good to know, because I was finding it difficult to follow long enough one segment before switching to another. So
yeah, of course. I mean, I just you're just trying it for the first time.
first time.
Yeah, it's just like a test drive, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So don't expect to have the whole car figured out on the first test drive, you know, just
Right.
if you
Right.
can find the steering wheel and the pedals and stuff, that's good enough for today.
Thank you for
Yeah.
clarifying that.
Yeah.
I made good notes, so I think I can now, until we meet again, work on spending more time progressing.
Yeah, and if you like, if you're just sitting in your meditation, each one of these actually is its own meditation. Of course, focusing is its own meditation. Inhale, the dissolving exercise is its own meditation. You could just focus.
Just
You
that.
could just do
Mhm.
that. Yeah, just do that. And the same with integrating into space. This is a practice. Each one of these is a practice that stands on its own as a practice. So you can just practice integrating into space. This practice is recommended at least at some point to try it outside, where you really have a big space, basically looking into the sky. And yeah,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions? Well, if you come up with a question, just wave your hands. I'm thinking, Matthew, that there was a lot of focusing on relaxing, finding any stress in the body, and diminishing that. And you did that a different way than you did it on the retreat, a different little directions. And I liked this one you did today. Um, and we did a lot of noticing our breath and having it move through us in different ways. So not just coming in from the top and out the bottom, but all sorts of different ways of trying to imagine your body breathing into your left shoulder, your right shoulder, blowing through all the way through you. So um, those were fun also. Um, so I think we've got three other people that were at the retreat, and maybe before you talk anymore, we let them each say what they thought was most important for them. And I'm just going to go across, and Dave, you're on my screen, you're at the top, so I'm going to ask you to go first. And before you go, Dave, I want to say that, we had a great group there, and there were only 8 of us. So, everyone got attention and participated. So it was just this, unique experience of sacred space and a small, wonderful little group. Sorry to cut you off, Dave.
Yeah, no problem. Bruce. Yeah, thanks again for organizing it, and thanks to Matthew, and thanks to this group. I thought about this group while we were there, and just appreciating just all of it. And yeah, that's where I kind of was as we finished the weekend. Just in the sitting in this appreciation, and since that time, I've kind of had a little more chance to kind of to think a little bit about what some of these takeaways have been and are. So for me, definitely this theme of releasing tension and seeing how important that is. I mean, starting with the body and using Matthew guided us, as you said, Bruce, in these different exercises with breathing, and then just relaxing the body. And I think everyone's probably familiar with different methods there. And I know Matthew's got some things on his website if you need more. But that was really key for me. I do a lot of relaxation exercises, but that in combined then with these meditations about spaciousness and feeling into that, they just supported each other, and then really allowed to be me to drop in and to explore in a deeper space, and to see how this self is constructed by these thoughts and this tension. And Matthew mentioned that. I think it was can't remember that teacher's name, that talks about how the self is created through tension.
Yeah, that's Alan Watts. He gets to talk about that.
Yeah. And so I started thinking about, yeah, well, we were deconstructing the self. We were maybe decentralizing through this spaciousness. And I guess for me, I was thinking about, I've been feeling more this dissolve, or this porosity. I feel like just more porous. And so that's been really a gift for sure. And so yesterday I was in a class. Mona was in this class with Todd at the Center for Sacred Sciences in Eugene, and just kind of sitting with these takeaways. And I think I wrote this down. We were looking at a paper, and there was a question. Well, the theme was about kind of grasping and the self being created, right, through grasping or pushing away. And Todd just shared something about this creation of the self, which resonated with me along the same theme of kind of, I don't know, the creation of self and how it's created by this kind of so-called tension. He said, self is an imagination. The grasping is forced. We have to do it, because if we don't do it, we don't exist. We have to think ourselves into existence, literally. And we do. And that's how this whole thing works. And it's just conditioned to happen.
It's good.
So that was a nice little kind of summary, or just a little bit of help for me yesterday, hearing all that. So
yeah, that's good.
Thank you, Dave.
And we're all innocent.
that's right.
What you just said made me think of this genealogy special that I watched called "Who Do You Think You Are?" And the guest that I watched was Patrick Stewart,
Ah,
the British Captain Picard of Star
yeah.
Trek. And it was fascinating to have the genealogist come up with things that he didn't know about his
Mhm.
family line. But what my takeaway from that show was this very same thing. He thought, well, who do you think you are? And all of those people, who came before him and his family were all contributing to him thinking up who he was. And so getting this additional information, it sort of changed
Mm.
who he thought he was. But he still was thinking who he was.
He was still thinking he was somebody.
Yes.
And I'll just throw in also, I appreciated Matt reminded us that we create this, the mind creates this illusion of self and world, and that it's possible to kind of dissolve the self but still feel that there's this reality out there. And so it's good to check in on the world and self, and
Yeah,
see about that.
this is an interesting point, and I've thought a lot about this because in my own experience, realization isn't just a realization of non-self, but also of non-world. And that self and world, subject and object, are two sides of the same coin. And so, for example, in Buddhism and followers of Buddhism, there's a strong emphasis put on the teaching of non-self. Nothing has a self. And so because of that, practitioners put a strong emphasis on inquiry into self and realizing or having insight into non-self, which is great. But it's only half of the equation. And so if you realize non-self, you have direct insight into it, but you don't simultaneously or very soon thereafter realize that in the same way that the self has no essence, that there is no self, the same is true of everything else. In the same exact way. In the same exact way that the self has no essence, the tree has no essence, the sky has no essence, the earth has no essence, the universe has no essence. And so you can say, in the same way there is no self, there is no world either. And it can happen the other way too. A person can have spontaneous, direct insight into non-world, into the unreality of the world. But if they still have attachment to the self, then that direct insight will become occluded again, because the self and the world, again, they're not separate. They are connected. They arise mutually, and if they are to be transcended, they have to be mutually transcended.
Thank you, Dave and Matthew.
Yeah, and I'll just say one more thing, that I feel just personally that this folding in practice really does that, because it doesn't leave anything out. So
that is the
world
whole
and
purpose.
self
Yeah,
are part of it. So you don't have a choice.
right. That's the whole purpose of it. You're exactly right. And also, yeah, you don't have to make a choice. It's all because you folded everything into a unity already. All you have to do is see through that, and it's all taken care of.
Hey, I don't know if you made Matthew really happy, Dave, but you made me really happy because it's really clear that you got it. You got Matthew's teachings there. And that for me, that just makes that weekend just totally worthwhile. Um, I'm going to drop down to Dennis, who is next. Um, and let's listen to what he got out of this weekend.
Hello, everybody. I think I most enjoyed uh, feeling a sense of oneness with everything, including everyone there, and it was just an incredibly special experience to um, ponder oneness in such a beautiful setting, feel at one with nature, at one with the monastery, at one with the people that were supporting us in our efforts there, and then of course as one with all of you as well. And it was just a really comfortable, very welcome experience for me.
Did you take any photographs?
Yes, I did. I sent some out to Matt, but I should probably send you those same photographs, and you can see that everybody gets them. Although there's some pictures of the group and our meditation and our digs and everything while we're there, but a lot of hippie pictures of flowers and stuff too. So. And then I got at the airport, I got a souvenir to commemorate the experience. I was looking for something to commemorate the experience, and I was like, well, what am I going to get? And they had this perfect little bear, and and I don't know if you can see it, but it says "Good vibes, Eugene, Oregon." So I thought, geez, that's just perfect. Good vibes. It was good vibes.
Right on.
Dennis is like in Oregon and Eugene.
Yeah.
Good vibes indeed. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Yep.
Any thoughts on that, Matthew? Oneness?
Good vibes. I'll just share one of my yeah, I mean, I just second that. I'll just share my own experience. One of my own lovely experiences from the weekend was that first day of meditation on Saturday. If you've never been to this place, let's see if I have this. They have this beautiful, Zen style meditation hall that looks. You could probably.
Yep.
It's amazing. Look at that.
That's a beautiful picture.
And so Saturday morning was our first full day there, and we started meditating at 7 a.m. It was dark. It was still nighttime. When we sat in there, there was no lights in the hall, no lights anywhere. And over the half an hour, the sun slowly came up and everything lit up. It was just a wonderful half hour. So I just wanted to share that because it was just such a lovely way to start the weekend. And also to plug the Trappist Abbey there, if you ever want to go on your own retreat, just a personal retreat, you can book rooms there and use that meditation hall and walk the property. There's a lot of land and trails and everything there. I'll definitely be going back myself. So I just want to say that, yeah, it's really a lovely place to practice.
And I'll just add that evening's our half-hour meditation, we got to witness the opposite.
That's true. You're right. Yeah.
Light, and then you look out the window and you see these beautiful big trees, and the light just sort of crept up those trees and diminished and diminished. So we got both sides of that. And then the last meditation was in pure darkness again. Yeah. Okay, Clara, what did you remember of this retreat?
Well, the place definitely extremely beautiful, extremely helpful, I would say, to go inside. And the group, and I was thinking to, and of course the chat with Father Casey. I really enjoyed it all. I thought it was perfect. And what I was thinking today in my way back home, what the teachings I really, really liked. And I was thinking, I didn't take notes during the retreat, like what stayed more. And definitely for me also the idea that the awakening is partial unless you get the both sides of the coin, like was being spoken before, really helped me to clarify a lot of the readings and a lot of the teachings and autobiographies that I've been for years reading, and to start to understand where the person that's writing or that's telling the experience of awakening may be coming from. Because now I can see why not everybody got both sides of the coin when they awakened, and why some things were confusing to me then in the teachings or in the writings or in meeting the person. And one thing that really stayed with me regarding the teachings, and I may not say this correctly, Matthew, please correct me, I may not even remember it correctly, was when we were talking about self-inquiry and self-inquiry and going back in the mind, tracing the thoughts and discarding this teaching that there's two ways to do it. One is the all-encompassing I am, and then letting go. And the other one is the observing the mind and releasing what is not, like, this is not me observing a thought, this is not me observing a emotion or a body sensation, and release them all, like the classical self-inquiry.
Yeah.
But one thing that I think was very helpful to hear was this, and here is that, I hope I remember it well, this idea that there are two obstacles in that process. One is not getting far away, like just doing it to a certain point, the self-inquiry, and then not continuing as far as you need to continue. So the advice to kind of push it a little bit and go beyond that limit or comfort, and the other obstacle that I remember was mentioned is this belief that the answer will be an idea. So the belief that the answer to the question, who I am or what I am, the response will be an idea, and that is not the case.
No,
So
yeah.
obviously, and so and lastly, and this last thing I want to say is also like some exploration in meditation about feeling inside of the body, and some guidance on this feeling trapped in the body, following the question that was asked to us one night, which is, where are you?
Yeah. So there's a lot in there. Let me comment on a few things. And so first of all, just with regard to the body and practice, I do recommend that you use the body for practice. If no other way, by using the breath, through passing the breath through the body. Use the breath as a way to map or inquire into the interior of the body. What's in there? Especially to remove tension. So many people, when they sit to meditate, their mind is very loud, and the mind and body are interconnected. So if you remove tension from the body, it will also help quiet the mind. If you quiet the mind, it will help quiet the body. So these two things are interconnected. As far as the inquiry, you mentioned kind of two different practices. They are interrelated also. One is like a classic inquiry, like, who am I? And yeah, I think maybe when people first hear this question, they think the answer might be an idea, but I think actually the strength of this question as a primary question for inquiry, and the same with where am I? The strength comes from it being such a simple question that very quickly it becomes obvious that it's not looking for an idea, because no idea will satisfy you to a question like this. If you say, who am I, you can come up with lots of ideas. Oh, I'm a person, or I'm this body, I'm Matt, I'm, Patrick Stewart, I'm, but if you have a will to the truth, if you have a desire to discover the reality or the truth about who you are, and you won't accept anything less than that, none of these thought-based answers will satisfy you. Even the most sophisticated ones will not satisfy you. And so the strength of the question is its simplicity, because you will see right away you're not satisfied with an idea. You're not satisfied with a concept. You're not satisfied with any of the possible word-based answers to such a question. And so it becomes clear that you're looking for a deeper reality. You're looking for something beyond an idea. And in fact, this is similar to, and of course, the other practice that you mentioned was sort of the discarding anything that is a thing. So, for example, if you think you are your thoughts, you investigate thoughts, and you see that the thoughts come and go, that there is no central thought, there is no core thought that is present all the time. Even the most treasured thoughts are there one moment and gone the next. At the very least, they all disappear when you fall into deep sleep, where there are no thoughts. So since you don't deny that you exist in deep sleep, as Ramana would say, you can't be a thought. And in the same way, you can't be like Nisargadatta would say, you can't be anything that you perceive, because you're perceiving it. So you can't be a thought, you can't be a sensation, you can't be your body, you can't be your mind, even because you are perceiving your mind. Who is perceiving your mind? And so you just start eliminating things this way. And again, it leads to this place where you can see the direction it's going, right? It's going into a space in which there are no concepts, in which there are no things. It's going into an emptiness. And that can be a little disconcerting, especially because we are conditioned or habituated to look for an answer in a thought or a concept. And we are conditioned to think that thoughts and concepts and things are what matters. And so if you, as I've described before, if you get to the end of a line of thinking, and that line of thinking could be discarding various things in an inquiry. I can't be that, because that comes and goes. Dreams come and go. I can't be a dream. My body, although at first glance it might seem like it's always there, if you watch it very closely, it isn't. it is sometimes there and sometimes gone. And again, at very least, it disappears during deep sleep. And so you can't be that. That can't be the essence of you. The mind also is only there sometimes and gone other times. That can't be the essence of you. And you just, you're following this train of thought. And then you start to get to what I describe as the edge of your mind, or a kind of metaphorical desert, where you look out beyond the edge and you think, well, there's nothing out there. I can see where this is going and there's nothing there. And because the mind is conditioned to seek answers through thoughts, you will just turn around and go back into the mind and think, well, I must have making a wrong turn somewhere. I must have been mistaken about something, and you'll try some other approach. But actually, that line of thinking, that approach, that inquiry got you right where it is supposed to get you, which is essentially nowhere. And but at first glance, we think that can't be important. That can't be what I'm looking for, because it isn't anything. And so, as I've said before, when you come to that place, try to just spend time there. Become comfortable with nothing. Become comfortable being nobody. Become comfortable having nothing. And this is kind of like real inner renunciation, inner retreat. See, you've retreated from all things. That's, in a way, the real meaning of retreat, to retreat from things, to find what is the ground of being, what doesn't come and go, what is always there. If you remove everything, what's left? And you don't be discouraged if you think, oh, it's just nothing. I assure you, it's a profound nothing. And there's, at the very least, there's no harm in making friends with it. Or becoming comfortable with it. And I'll add just one more kind of approach to this, which is Nisargadatta's approach is to focus all your attention on one thought, and that thought is I am. Just focus on one thought. See, his method is to fold everything into this one primal, like, first thought to appear. When you wake up in the morning, you might notice this is the first thought that appears. Just a sense of being, pure being. Then maybe you think I am. You don't think it literally like that, but you know what I'm saying. You think yourself into existence, like Todd was saying, And so if you fold everything into this one thought, there's another practice that I think sometimes people misunderstand, like misunderstanding the question, who am I, as if the answer is supposed to be some kind of thought. The point of focusing all your attention on this singular thought, I am, is not because the I am thought is the ultimate truth. It is in order to only have one thing to let go of, one thing to see through, one thing to transcend. So when all your attention is focused on I am, if you let go of it, that thought, suddenly everything is gone. Or as Nisargadatta says, if you investigate this I am, you will discover that it too is false, and thereby be liberated from it. In the same way that you say, I am not my thoughts, you ultimately say, I am not this I am. I don't exist.
Thank you, Matthew. Everyone get all that?
We're recording, so that's something.
Any questions? I see you smirking there, Gene. What's behind that smirk there?
Well, I just appreciate the transcending by moving everything to one thing and then moving past that. Is that,
Yeah,
did I take that
that's
in right?
basically it. You could say the method is put everything in one basket, then put the basket in the basket, and then then set down the basket. Yeah. Yeah, that's the basic idea. And there's many different approaches. You can see that there's many different ways to do that. Many different ways that you could use thoughts, use practice in order to do that in a way that works for you, and as long as you're thorough and get everything wrapped into that one thing and thorough in seeing through it, then that's everything. Usually the obstacle for people is they leave something out, and the things that we want to leave out, of course, one of the main things we want to leave out is ourselves. We want to keep ourselves separate so that we don't have to set ourselves down. We don't have to set ourselves aside or erase ourselves. And but it can be other things. People are very attached to their view of the world, their understanding of how they think the universe is or how it works, their metaphysics, their thoughts about how the unseen world works, their thoughts about God, their attachment to traditions or religion, or all these things can be helpful. They can be a helpful guide on the path, but they can also become obstacles. Anything can become an obstacle if we become attached to it and we're not willing to put it in that basket.
Any questions or thoughts?
I'll share a couple things. First of all, appreciation for what people shared about their experience at the monastery. Been there several years. I was introduced some years ago by a very good friend of mine, a different friend from Bruce, and special place. And appreciating, there's so much depth here in what's been said and spoken about by everyone, and but I think the thing for me that I guess my add to what would be, if I'm getting what you're saying, Matthew, and others, for me, it's something about holding it all loosely.
Mm-hmm.
It's about non-attachment and holding it all loosely. And without story, I had a beautiful experience in August of an offering I created and delivered. And I think some things worked really well because a good friend that helped me out with it, or said, she said, NATO, Teddy, not attached to the outcome. You got to practice NATO.
I
I,
haven't heard
I
that. I
did.
like it.
I was like, yeah, all I care about is that it serves in some way. But I wasn't attached to how that landed. And so when you were talking about perception, Matthew, I think because I didn't even have a clear, this is going to sound really weird, but a clear vision of like necessarily what I wanted people to
Mm,
leave with, except for a something of a good experience for themselves. So and it was an amazing thing to touch. And I feel like what you've also been talking about here has to do with that same, or what piece of holding it all
yeah, absolutely.
loosely.
And you're right in the sense that the true uh the experience, a person's experience in practice or whatever comes from themselves, you know. Um, so that's right. Even as a writer, right? You write a book. I may have an idea of my idea of this story, but when somebody reads it, if they enjoy it for their own reasons. They have their own experience. They have their own insight. And it may be different than mine, you know. And so at the retreat, I said, you know, uh, it was it was sort of a silent retreat. It wasn't
Oh, there
entirely.
was hardly any silence.
Bruce says there's hardly any silence, but we did do silent meditation, half-hour silent meditations, and we sort of had silent meals. They were semi-silent. And actually, I was talking to one of the monks while we were doing dishes, and he asked me if we were having a silent retreat. And I was like, sort of. Yeah, sort of silent. I said, yeah, sort of silent meals, sort of silent walkings. He seemed to understand what I was saying though. But at the beginning of the retreat, I said, I was talking about, Ramana Maharshi used to say that the essence of his teaching was silence. And if people didn't understand that silence, then, he would go on and answer questions or say something, but he really wanted people to understand it was the silence that's what really mattered. And I agree with that 100%, but I would like to add, it's not my silence. It's your silence that is that is the greatest teacher, you know. And so that just kind of what you said reminded me about you didn't know what they were experiencing other than you wanted them to have an experience, them to have some insight. You couldn't say what it would be, and that's not a bad approach. So yeah.
Was there a second part to your comments, Teddy?
No, I think, well, the only thing that's up for me that I'm not stirred, but I'm contemplating what you're saying, Matthew, and earlier about essence, because I feel like my own movement practice with Qigong has tuned me into a different place of essence that I value. So maybe I'm attached to that. But I think,
Yeah,
but what I'm attached to is that actually is spacious. It's not as detached, it's just an appreciation for that connection with mind and body and a different place of letting go and spaciousness. I get to touch in that. So
that sounds
yeah.
like worthy investigation.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's possible to become attached or for a practice to become a trap, but um, it's also very helpful to practice. And just from those brief words, it sounds like, see, you're still investigating. What is it? What is this mind body thing that I'm appreciating? So I would say keep investigating. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. What is the essence?
Right. Yes.
That
In
is
fact,
good. story.
Yes, find it. Find the essence if you can. Seek what is that essence. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm. Yeah, and the other theme of the retreat I'll just share with you was the idea that there are two aspects to practice and two aspects to retreat. And one aspect is putting forth effort, trying. Working hard at it, really striving to find out, to understand, to focus, to tame the mind, to silence one's thoughts, to relax the body, and so on. So involves this kind of vigorous, like I always think of training because that was my experience, like a vigorous training where that's all you're doing, you're really focused on it. But there's this other aspect of practice that is just pure letting go, just relaxing, just not doing anything. And so practice has this kind of oscillation where you put forth effort and pressure builds, and then it releases, and pressure builds, and it releases, and pressure builds, and it releases. And over time, practice can be like that, even over years, the pressure could build over years and then release over years. The whole life is kind of like that, right? And the truth is not in the pressure, nor is it in the release. It's everywhere. So when we practice, it involves there are these two aspects of practice, but one is not better than the other. It's like we need them both on the path. In the same way, there's not really beginning practices and advanced practices. That's just a kind of different stimulus. There's nothing more true about an advanced practice or a complicated practice than just focusing, or even less than focusing, just sitting there. No particular practice at all. Just sitting there, waiting for the half hour to be done. This is also practice. So I guess that's just my pep talk for practice. Don't be discouraged. Like if all you're doing is sitting there, that's good practice. Nothing wrong with that.
Any other questions? Final thoughts?
I'll just share that some years ago I heard Pema Chodron say, "The practice is the practice." And that was a wake up that was a little awakening for me. Like, yeah, just what you were saying, Matthew, the practice.
The practice is the practice.
Practice is the practice. I was like, oh my God, it's that simple.
Just do that. Yeah.
Just practice. Don't complicate it.
Don't make it more complicated than it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure it out so I can get it right.
Well, good luck. Good luck, Bruce. Good luck, Bruce. I have a few final thoughts, Bruce. I'd like to share a little bit what I shared on the last day of the retreat.
Good.
Because so the final day of the retreat, I wanted to talk a little bit about what was the title? It was abiding in silence in the midst of everyday life. So we're spending all this time investigating inner silence, some outer silence, and looking for that which is always present, and so on. And the question I wanted to pose is, how do we bring this back to our everyday life? And I also wanted to approach it kind of from a completely different approach, a very not esoteric approach, not mystical, at least not that mystical. It really approach, but a practical approach. And so I had a few pieces of what I think is good advice, and so I'd like to share that with you. And what I said is, resolve to live a simple life. And that doesn't mean you can't enjoy worldly things. It doesn't mean you can't make changes in your life or work toward goals. But notice the constant stream of blessings that are delivered to us and be content with them and grateful. Continue to practice without regard for results, or NATO for short. Is that right? And abide in the silence that is the background of everything. And if you feel you haven't found that silence, I gave the same kind of advice I give for prayer. You can pray without having found God, you can, but here's how I advise that you do it. And this is the same with this silence, for example. First, just acknowledge that this silence is there. That behind everything is this kind of holy silence, that is the background of everything, the source of all things, that from which all things come and to which all things go. And however you conceive of this silence, whatever ideas you use to imagine it, just acknowledge that it's there, and try to remember it in your day-to-day life. Just to recall, yes, there is this silence beyond this stress, beyond these worries, beyond the suffering, beyond the violence, chaos of the world. There is this peace. And learn to trust that, to have some trust in it. So acknowledge, remember, trust. And if you can trust this silence enough, then love for it can blossom. And if that blossoms fully, then surrender yourself to it. And I said, this remembrance it can be like a meditation. When you find the mind has gone somewhere else, just gently bring yourself back to this silence. And in it, find what I think about as 4 kind of pillars of life and action. I didn't think these up, but they're I can't imagine anything better. They are loving kindness, compassion, empathetic joy, which I have to say I never really understood until after my awakening, and then I really understood it fully, which is just seeing the joy of others as your joy, being joyful at the joy of others, and equanimity. Which is really where the focus of the teaching and the meditation I was talking about earlier are all focused on equanimity, folding everything into one, to see that all things are one, to see that all things are unified. But it's important to recognize that these are all intertwined. You know, kindness comes from seeing that all beings are one being. Same with empathetic joy and compassion. So they're all intertwined. And you can come at it from all angles. Each act of kindness is approaching equanimity, an approach to equanimity, an approach to empathetic joy, an approach to compassion. And each act of compassion is approach to the other. See, they're all the same. Ultimately, all these four qualities are the same kind of wordless quality. Great compassion. That's what I call it. A kind of compassion that isn't mine. It isn't yours. It's the engine of the manifest universe. That kind of compassion. A compassion that makes everything happen. That makes us come into being and makes everything move, puts us on the path, and guides us toward freedom, liberation. With that, peace to you all. Thank you for coming.
I'll do a quick blessing. May each of us fall into silence. In this timeless present moment, may we fall into silence and touch that unified being, the great compassion, and rest in it. Let's rest in the silent compassion and let's call it love. Let's all rest in eternal love. And many blessings, and see you all next month.
Thank you, Bruce, and thank you, everyone.